Hello lovely people. Let me move you a little closer. Don't be frightened. Hello everyone and welcome to the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name is Leslie and this is a podcast about knitting, crochet, spinning, machine knitting, weaving, general yarn craft, filmed around the south coast of the UK. You're very welcome whether you've been here before or whether you're brand spanking new to the podcast. Thank you for being here and you are extremely welcome. Big thank you to everyone who has commented, liked, subscribed, all of those things. I do always try to respond to comments, so if I've missed anyone that is purely by accident, so hopefully I've caught everybody. Thank you, I really love the interaction, it makes me a very happy person. Now we're called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, despite the fact that I have quite a lot, is because I rarely have enough for a whole garment, or enough of one colour or one type for a whole garment, which I will shortly be demonstrating. So I end up putting in stripes, fades, blocks, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's the reason for the name. And until this year, I had been on a no yarn buying kick for about 2 years, apart from a couple of odd exceptions. The last couple of months I've been buying a bit of yarn to support indie dyers at a time when businesses are struggling, and also to support some that have been raising money for causes that I am happy to support. So there has been a bit of purchasing, and in fact I will have some acquisitions in a wee while. But essentially I'm mostly trying to use up my stash and work with what I have. I'm involved in a couple of make-alongs this year, and the first is very much stash related. Now that's being co-hosted with the wonderful Barbara from the Flame and Fibre podcast, and it is the Stash Mal 2020. She has also been on a no-buy kick. All of last year she abstained from buying yarn. She is buying a few bits this year, but she's being much more mindful and conscious of what she's buying and choosing in a very discerning way. And we are both running this stash mail. Rules very simple. To be eligible, the yarn had to have been in your stash as at the end of last year, and the project had to be begun this year, so 1st of January onwards. Had to be begun, is that right? You know what I mean. We both have 2 threads in our Ravelry groups, so to enter, join the groups if you're not already members, and we both have a finished object thread, and that's a no chatter one, so if you can just put up a picture of your finished object, by all means put a bit of description around it, what prompted the inspiration, how long you've had the yarn, those sorts of things. But there isn't the capacity to respond on that thread. However, you can also put your finished objects on the chatter thread, and then folks can respond and tell you how wonderful it is and how beautifully you put yarns together and all of that good stuff. So please do double multiple dip, so enter on both Barbara's and my make-along threads. And if you're involved in any other make-along, providing it doesn't contravene their rules, you're welcome to join into ours as well. So multiple dipping definitely encouraged. I love that thread. I am getting so many ideas of things to make. I love seeing how people put stuff together. Oh, it's wonderful. Prizes. There are 2 draws a quarter. One is from the chatter thread, and that's a pattern prize up to a value of $10 US. The other draw is from the finished object thread, and that's a physical prize, so yarn or a bag or something scrummy. So thank you to everyone who's been taking part in that. Even if you're not interested in taking part, I really would suggest, if you've got a little while, go and have a look, because there are some great things in there. That's one of the make-alongs I'm involved in. The other is with the lovely Kellyanne from Yarn Tales by the Sea, and we are running the Ocean Mal 2020, and it's really anything sea themed, so it can be blues, greens, sea, beach, seaside colours. It can be a yarn that's named after something sea related. It can be a colourway that's or a pattern that's named after something sea related. It could be a pattern with waves in it, or pebbles, of, you know, pebble style bobbles. That's the thing, looks like pebbles, you know what I'm saying. So basically, if you can convince us that it fits the brief, we're happy to accept the entry. Same principles apply on Kellyanne's Yarn Tales by the Sea group, and in the Not Quite Enough Yarn group, 2 threads, finished object, chatter, similar thing. So a draw every quarter from the chatter thread for a pattern, and a draw every quarter from the finished object thread for a prize. Again, thank you to everyone who's joining in. For that particular make-along, it doesn't have to be from stash, so if it's new yarn, you're more than welcome to put it in there. But if it is stash yarn, you can always, and it's stash you had before the end of last year, you can enter it into mine and Barbara's make-alongs as well. So lots of opportunities to win, which is great. Now, I said I had some stash acquisition, so let me just get it and show you. I'm very glad the camera wasn't still rolling, because I nearly went head first into Enid the dress form, so that would, from your angle, would not have been pretty at all. Stash. I have been on a bit of a, I've had a definite theme to the stash that I've bought this year, and it's been a lot of bright colours, and usually this kind of style, so you've got a lot of a main colour and then bright. And I have 2 of these here. These are both from Orchidean Yarns, and these appeared on the Luxury Yarns Instagram page, and the wonderful dyer behind Luxury Yarns, who is Abby, I think that's what that says, keep calm and carry yarn as long as it's luxury. She had a fundraiser, so this with the rainbow against the cream on her platinum sock base, although I think she was offering it on other bases, is her We Are In This Together colourway, and a goodly proportion of the funds from this is going to raise money for the NHS. So I saw the yarn and thought, oh, I saw the cause and thought, oh yes. So obviously I went and had a look. Now, I then felt that it was very good of Abby to have this fundraiser, and it would not be so good of me to just buy one skein of that and say thank you very much. And I've seen this one before and I rather love it. So this is the Let Me Be More Light colourway, and this is on her Mulberino 50 base. 50% mulberry silk, 50% superwash merino. And you can see we've got this beautiful silver grey with these fabulous neons. And we have similar brights in this one. So I'm very happy. She also put a few stitch markers in. They stop rattling. There we go. So well done, Abby, on this fundraiser. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for producing such lovely yarn while you do it. Pretties. Now, last month I had a not particularly constructive month. I made one finished object, which was a crochet poncho, so it was a fairly quick finished object. And although I'm the first to say it doesn't matter, this isn't a competition as to how much we produce, I would have liked to have been able to show you more stuff. So I am very pleased that right now I have another finished object for you. Now, as I record this opening part, it's the 2nd of May. it might be the only finished object I have this month, but at least I have one, and it's got sleeves, so that's good. So I have finished the Shear V by Jessie Maed Designs, and it's wonderful, and I will put it on in a moment to show you it on the person, well, the person being me, but just to show you the main kind of wow feature of that is this neck, and that's why it's a Shear V. Oh look, you can see my face, hello. So this is a pattern by Jessie Maed Designs, and it's one with many variations, or many possible variations. So I am going to go and put it on so you can see it worn, and I'll talk a bit more about it. Sweater as worn. Let me stand up and give you a bit of a little thing. Now I made it slightly longer than the suggested pattern. It's originally designed as a cropped piece. I don't wear cropped sweaters, so I did make it a little bit longer. It's worked from the bottom up, but Jessie Maed is an incredibly thoughtful designer. She thinks about the alterations and the modifications that people will want to make, and so she tells you how much more yarn you'll need for each length of body that you will want to add. It's the details, isn't it? It's always the details. So it is mostly knit holding 4-ply fingering weight yarn and mohair yarn together. This bit is just the mohair. Shaping is relatively simple, straight pieces. It's worked in the round to the arms, and then you work flat for the front and the back, and then join the necks, ribbing at the neckline, join them, work the sleeves and knit down. Now, modifications, as well as making it longer, I also modified the sleeves. The original pattern has sleeves which are just straight, or they may even increase all the way down, so they are very big at the cuff. I am not a wearer of flappy sleeves. It just doesn't, I find them very irritating. So I tapered in. Now as you can see, I didn't taper in massively. I still have quite a bit of play there, which is just as well, because most of my life I spend with my sleeves like that. But I did taper the sleeves in, so I altered the silhouette because it's this beautiful thing. But we've got to make the garments to suit what we wear and how we wear them, so that makes sense. This is a classic not quite enough yarn pattern for me because, and forgive me leaning into you here, the main mohair that I used, I knew I wouldn't have quite enough. I made the largest size, which is a 62-inch bust, 60 to 62, which does give me quite a bit of ease. The recommended ease is 0 to 2 inches, and the size range on this is phenomenal. 62 is the largest, 26 is the smallest. So in theory it could fit anyone from a 24-inch bust with 2 inches ease to a 62 with 0 ease. So very good size range. Lots of sizes within that as well. So it's not as if you've got to choose between two massive gap, you know, you're in the middle of a big gap. Lots of sizes within that. I knew that 1,000 metres of the mohair would not be enough, but I also knew I had other mohairs to it. Realising that I was running out, I put this stripe in here, so that's coming across the bust, so that was just before I split. I didn't quite judge it right. I was hoping I would have enough of this, and I will go through the yarns in a moment, for the whole front and back. Didn't quite make it, so I have a little stripe here, but I then matched in as close as I could for the sleeves with pink and then the green. There are 2 pinks involved here because I had 2 different balls of bright pink mohair. Who doesn't? So a real not quite enough yarn sweater, partly planned, mostly made up as I went along, which is normal. So the yarns. The black was a wool alpaca mix that I had in the stash. The main mohair, this variegated one, excuse me leaning in with my neck here, but you can see the colours in here. And that is from Little Knitting Company, and it's the Little Knitting Top 50. It's a 50% mohair, 50% acrylic mix. I got it at Ali Pali a few years ago, so I will link the yarn companies, but I don't know if they're still offering the colourways that I have. The other mohairs, the pink, bright pink and the green, are Kid Silk Haze, so fairly well known. And this little stripe here is Stranded Dyeworks in the House Red colourway, and that was some I had left over from the Adia sweater that I made as a test knit last year. So those are the yarns. These are the mods that I've made, the body length and the sleeve shape. If I were to make it again, what mods would I make? I would taper the sleeves more. I prefer a more fitted sleeve, and this was entirely my own fault. I just made it up as I went along. I didn't actually sit and do the maths on it, so I needed to decrease more frequently than I was doing. That's okay. This is very livable for me. Had I wanted a very fitted sleeve, then I would have done the maths. So if I were doing it again, I would decrease more often, because the sleeves are worked from the top down to give me a tighter cuff. The other thing that I think, there are another two things, and it's to do with the neck and the shoulders. I am quite round shouldered, so if I were doing this again, I think I would put a few short rows across the back. Because it is a completely straight neck, there's no kind of play in it, so I think I would have put a few short, let me do it on the other hand, a few short rows in to shape this slightly so that it would hang a little softer rather than being this straight line across the back of the neck. With the front neck, I think there is a pretty good chance that this will irritate me, and I'm sure that's partly yarn choices. I love the colours of this yarn, but it's 50% mohair, 50% acrylic. It's not as soft as, say, the Stranded mohair mix, which is a mohair silk. So I think it is going to get a little bit irritating. And of course it's not a sweater. I mean, I've got a vest top under this, but it's not a sweater you necessarily want to wear something underneath, because you don't want to lose the impact of this. So that's certainly something to be considered, depending on the sensitivity of your skin. I'm fairly robust, but I just think this is going to get a little bit, for me, technical term, obviously. Now, what could you do about that? Use a yarn with a different mohair mix, of course, that's the obvious thing. I'm also wondering, I mean, I love the straight line of this and the kind of the drama of it, but I am also wondering if there was a way of kind of short rowing it and shaping it slightly, so you would as if it were a crew neck. That's something I'd have to think about if I were making it again. I don't very often make the same thing more than once, so it's not going to be an issue. Just sharing these thoughts so that you can think about it if you were making the pattern. It's very well written. Everything is very clear. As I said, she's a very thoughtful designer. Much detail on. You can vary the length of this V, because some people have found it a little bit more revealing than they'd want it to be. So she gives instructions for varying the length of this, so that it may not be quite as deep. Things like that make a lot of difference to a design. It means that when you print them off, they're a book. Is this a knitting pattern or War and Peace? But it does mean you have a huge amount of scope and a way to really personalise it for you. Which is kind of what we all want, because if we wanted off the shelf, we'd go and buy one. So yes, this is the Shear V sweater, which I started, when did I start it? I wrote it down, the 18th of December. I was so mad keen for this. Oh my goodness, I was super excited for this pattern coming out. I could not wait. And then as soon as I started it, I kind of hit a a break. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know. I then moved it. Lastly, I moved it to the project that I keep up here in the office, and when I'm checking ceremonies for my work, when I'm reading them aloud, I knit, because I was just on the sleeves, straightforward, round and round stocking stitch. That's easy to do. So that does then slow it down, because it's just up here and just perhaps half an hour at a time or an hour at a time. But yeah, I just hit a break with it for no real reason, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with the pattern. I haven't blocked this yet. I don't know how it's going to block out, but it's doing pretty well as it is, so I'm not going to worry too much. So yes, it's still not as long as I wear most of my sweaters. I've got it with jeans on at the moment, but mostly I will probably wear it with skirts or even over dresses. I've got a lot of black dresses, so it might go over those. So yes, the Shear V by Jessie May Martinson, who is Jessie Made Designs. I'll put all the details in the notes below. A finished object that I'm rather happy with. Hello. Gosh, I'm a long way down. Hope that's better. Hello lovely people, how are we all? Hope everyone is well. Got a few little bits and pieces to show you, starting with a baby blanket. Now I was given some yarn, a bundle of sort of assorted yarns, and there were all sorts of bits and pieces in there, including this yarn, which is Sirdar KoolKidz. KoolKidz spelt with a K and a Z. I think it's important to point that out. Had a couple of balls of this, and my initial thought was to make a hat, possibly to give to a homeless charity or just to have a hat. And as I was making it, I thought, there's something familiar about this. So you've got the main purple. It's a chunky, bulky weight yarn. So you've got the main purple there, and you can see all the other colours. And that's... Oh, you can possibly hear vacuuming in the background. I'm not going to stop him. We'll put up with the noise. I'm not going to stop him. Yes, so you've got these other colours, and that's on like a thin strand with like bobbles or popcorns of colour. And I thought, I have something similar in my stash. And I do. And it's this. Now, I got this at the Knitting and Stitch Show in Harrogate, so some years ago, from the Texere Yarns stand. Texere Yarns is no longer trading, but used to do loads of cones of yarn, and I've got lots of cones of their yarn from after they failed that I bought through a local business. And this is called Midget Gems, Fine and Fancy Knop. Knop being spelt K-N-O-P, in the fluorescent pastel colourway. I don't know if you can see that label. And I thought this is the texture of the yarn in here. So I had a rethink. I unpicked what I'd started on the hat and thought what I'll do is I'll make a baby blanket, and I have some purple double knitting weight yarn which I can then hold with this to be roughly equivalent to the chunky weight, roughly, not exactly but close enough, to edge the blanket. Ta-da! So that's what I've done. So like I said, I had two balls of the chunky, the KoolKidz, with a K and a Z, and then I held together country style, Sirdar country style, with the Midget Gems until I ran out of the country style. And I played yarn chicken and won. I think I had about a couple of feet of yarn left, so that was a relief. So here we go. So this is a baby blanket. It's about, I think I measured it, it's just over 2 feet square. So it's a sort of Don't know if that would make it cot blanket size, or perhaps for use with a car seat or something like that. I do have someone in mind that may be the recipient. I need to get details of how to get it to them. Someone I used to work with and I know on Facebook, but I don't actually have their mailing address to be able to post it, but that can be found. So that was a nice little use up. So I've used up the KoolKidz, I've used up the country style, but I've made something constructive out of it. And it used some of this, which I had no idea what to use with. I think I got it almost by default because it was one of these offers where you would buy 10 cones for a certain price, and they had 9 cones that I wanted, so I was looking for something else, and I thought, well, I'll give that a go, which I did. And we're going to pause because vacuuming's taking place. Not sure where I was. Blanket, 3 types of yarn. One of them's on this cone. Now I know what to do with it. I probably will use it with something else, perhaps with a pale colour, a white even, just to give a bit of interest to something. It may well end up in another baby blanket, but we shall see. Who knows? Doesn't say what the yardage is on this, so I'm going to have to guess a bit. I didn't do the smart thing, which was to weigh it and then weigh it after I'd finished, because I know how much yardage I used of the country style, so I should have worked it out. Didn't think of that. Never mind. The world will not end on account of that. It'll be ending for other reasons, but it won't end on account of that. So that's the first thing I have to show you. The next thing is some spinning. And I had a braid of yarn from Witchcrafty Lady, and I am super delighted with how it's spun up. It's Polworth and very pretty. The colours have muted slightly. I had 2 from her. One was white with strong colours, one was light with paler colours, softer colours. This is actually the stronger coloured one, but it's spun up a bit paler, I think, as I've drafted it. Sort of some of the light was in with the dark, so it sort of muted everything. But I'm very pleased with it. My intention with this was to ply it with some alpaca, because I have still quite a lot of alpaca to spin, as it came from an entire fleece. And I've been strongly recommended to try it out first, because alpaca is soft and drapey and doesn't hold itself very well. 100% alpaca can go very soft and drapey, and everything ends up being a bit shapeless. So I thought, well, I'll apply one of these, or this one, and the other one when I've spun it, and one of these in a classic 3-ply with 2 other plies of alpaca. And it was suggested that that might not be enough. So I thought, well, I'll have a little go, and made a hat. Now it is quite soft. It is warm, which is the other thing I was told it would be. Just a simple hat. I just made a skein of, I think it was about 200 yards, just under 200 metres, and then just knitted till I ran out. So that's why it looks like this. It has helped me to understand what I'm going to make with the finished yarn. I think I'm still going to keep it with the 3-ply that I had planned, but I'm going to go for a soft drapey garment, sort of tunic style sweater almost, rather than something that's got a lot of texture or very fitted, because the definition will go with it. But I do like the softness, I do like the warmth. Let me show you the hat. Now, made myself look terribly attractive. Did it on, I think, 4.5mm needles, and because I didn't know at what point I'd run out, so started at the top, increased every row, So it's a fairly flat top to it. Because I didn't know how long it would be before I ran out of yarn, and I just wanted to make a hat using what I had, I started a rib pattern about here and just ribbed down. Now the rib doesn't have a huge amount of elasticity. This is in the nature of alpaca, but it is enough to stop it floating away, hopefully. So, little hat. You can see bits of colour from the Polwarth, hopefully. So I'm happy with how it's knitted up from that point of view, because I didn't want it to detract from the alpaca, but it's nice to have these little bits of colour just to lighten it. Slightly mild effect where you've got the mainly white, and little bits of colour just to give it a bit of interest, but without making it a particularly bright and coloured sweater. Which, given everything else I'm working on at the moment, is a definite contrast, because everything else I'm working on has very bright colours in it. More on that later when I go through the works in progress. Yes, so that's my alpaca and Polwarth hat. So the alpaca was from a fleece I was given as a gift by my mate Maed last year when we went to an alpaca farm, and this lovely Polwarth is from Witchcrafty Lady, the wonderful Almas, who just creates the most beautiful colours. She also spins beautifully. If you want handspun yarn, have a look at her Etsy shop, because she just produces the most beautiful even spinning, to which I and no doubt many others aspire. But I'm pleased with this, considering I've only been spinning since end of last year, sort of Q4 of last year. It's coming along pretty well. So that's all good. Yes, if you're going to do a podcast, taking a hat off and putting it on several times is really good, isn't it? Really useful. Such a pro. The next thing I've got to show you is some stash acquisition. I haven't been buying, but I have been given this wonderful gift by Sue, who is a viewer, who got in touch and said, I would like to send you a little present, so thank you very much. Look at this! I have shown it on the daily vlog, so if you've seen it already, you've seen it already. But it's so gorgeous, I'm sure you wouldn't mind seeing it again. So she very kindly sent me some yarn from Rosie's Knitting Shed. And I am very fond of Rosie. Come on, focus please. Doesn't want to play today, does it? That's better. Yep, so Rosie's Knitting Shed. I'll put the link in below for Rosie's podcast. She's done a few recently with her mum. They are very entertaining, just lovely to watch. So I have skeins of Rosie's yarn, and Sue, I cannot thank you enough for this. It is incredibly kind. So this first one is the A Little Girl's Christmas colourway, and that's in 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's a DK weight, so 225 meters per 100 grams. And look at these fabulous colours. Pink, blue, just, very nice. So thank you very much for that. And then she very kindly gave me three of Rosie's superwash merino, 85%, 15% Donegal Nep. It's a 4-ply fingering weight, 400 meters for 100 grams, and it's in the Wayfaring Tree Fairy colourway. So beautiful, deep colours, green in there, blues, purple based, just gorgeous. So you are just so kind, and Rosie being Rosie, there's a fairy stitch marker there, I don't know if you can see that. And on some of the other skeins, bits of glitter and sequin. There's some light bulb stitch markers there. So just an absolute treat. So Sue, thank you so much. So many ideas. I don't know what I'm going to make with it yet, but it will be gorgeous. And the feel of those yarns as well is great. I mean, this is just, they're both so soft. They're really nice feel to them. So, I am a very lucky girl, and I am very grateful. Thank you all. Oh, just thank you Sue so much. Yes, for yarns. As I'm recording this, it's what day is it? It's the 17th of May. And last night I was at a virtual knit night hosted by Sheryl, the amazing Sheryl. It was a midnight start for me, so I didn't stay for the whole duration, but it was just such good fun. There were over 50 of us at one point. Barbara from Flame of Fibre was there. Lots of podcasters that Sheryl knows were there. Some of you lovely guys were there. It was great to put faces to names and comments. So just really enjoyed it. I am fairly tired today. I had a bit of a nap beforehand, but still a tad weary. But yeah, just it was good fun, and one of the good things to come out of these lockdown times, because under other circumstances it's unlikely that we would say to people across the world, do you fancy a Zoom meeting and we'll just sit and knit for a couple of hours? Maybe we should, but I don't know that we would have done, and now we have, and it was something that I really enjoyed. So thank you to Shevers for having the idea and for hosting it. Thank you to the lovely Elizabeth, who was doing a lot of the controls and admin during it, and to everyone who took part, and to those of you who we kind of spoke directly, thank you. Made it a really good evening. So evening / early morning. So thank you very much, everyone. Onwards. Yeah, it's mid-month. Haven't got lots of stuff to say because there's not lots of stuff going on, and I think we're all in the same boat. You know, we're all crafting away, and I'll have some whips to show you. I'm going to wait until nearly the end of the month before I show you, so that there's hopefully a decent amount of progress on them. But yeah, it's all just plodding on. So I hope you're all okay, and more later. Hello lovely people, hope you're all okay. I have a little yarn acquisition to show you, and these are both fundraisers. The first is from Stranded Dyeworks. So this is the lovely Amy of Stranded, and this is her Don't Touch Your Face colourway. Now Amy of Stranded Dyeworks has raised hundreds of pounds for various charities. The first batch she did these as pre-orders, and the first batch she did was raising money for the NHS. The second batch was split over two charities. One was the Trussell Trust, which supports food banks, and the other was a charity helping victims of domestic abuse. So really well done, Amy, for the money that you've raised. And look at these lovely colours. Now she had two colourways. This is Don't Touch Your Face. She also had Wash Your Hands. I went onto the shop update and there was a bit of a glitch in it, which she spoke about afterwards, and it looked as if the Wash Your Face had already sold out. And I thought, well, that's a bit quick, but I know that her stuff can sell out very quickly. So I ordered my skein, went through the process, and then realised there'd been this glitch, but by then I think the other stuff had sold out, so or certainly I wasn't in a position to go back in and get it. So I have one skein. I know I've seen lots of people with their posts of both and lots of plans for both, but I have this and I'm extremely happy with it. So blues, sort of salmony, peachy pinks, some orange, some green. It's all lovely stuff. So that's the first skein. The second is another skein of luxury yarns or Orchidean yarns, platinum sock, in the We Are In This Together colourway, which is supporting the NHS. So if I just move the band slightly, you can see there's blues, pinks, greens, all sorts of gorgeousness. Now, I got one of these last month, which is currently caked up here, ready to go. And I bought this for a specific project. When does that ever happen? We are certainly in curious and strange times. So it's a crochet project, and let me show you the pattern. This book here is the pattern, but please don't be intimidated by that. It's because it's written out with detailed instructions for each size. So don't be intimidated by the amount of paper involved. It's to make life a lot easier. So what is this strange and curious pattern, you may ask? I will put a colour picture on here. This is the, forgive my pronunciation, Lysvirka cardigan, vest or tunic by Brigitte Osenbruck. Now I hope I've got those pronunciations correct. And it's, as you can see here, I always print everything in black and white, but there we go. I'm making the cardigan version, and it's worked from the centre out. So you work from centre out, front and back together, and then the sleeve is added on. And the piece that you're making, it uses the height of different crochet stitches to create the shape that you're after. I was going to show you a picture, but I might as well show you the piece. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? So, if you are sensitive to bright lights, prepare to shield your eyes now. Look at this! So this is the Siobhans Crafts. This is Twinkknits. These are both recent purchases. I think you saw them last month. This is Dusty Dimples. I bought this at Unravel last year when my pink phase started. And what I've been doing with this is I split the Siobhans Crafts in half so that I would do the same for each half of the cardigan. And then I've got another grey with brights. This was the other Luxury Yarns, Orchidean Yarns skein that I bought last month. I have another bright, which was, let me grab the label, Dinah's Home of Crafts, Sunglasses Are Needed. So I'm going to use them in the same order, but they will be slightly different. And then the final skein and the sleeves will be in the platinum sock. And I didn't really have anything that matched, or at least I do. I have some chintz pies yarn, but they're different. The colours are different. They're not the neons, they're a deeper, more of a jewel tone. So I was going to use this, but I have other plans for this, of course. So this is the platinum sock that will go on here, and this new one will go on the other side. So I said about using different height of stitches to give the shape to the garment, and you can hopefully see here, certainly if I hold it that way, you can see. So this here is the sleeve cap. If I stand up. So it's going to be fabulous, it's going to be bright, it's going to be gorgeous. It's a really nice weight of cardigan. It's all of the yarn is fingering or 4-ply weight, and it gives it a nice drape. The only difference I've made to the pattern is that initially, and I don't know if you can see in the picture, the designer suggests working back and front loop to give more definite ridges. I didn't do that, firstly because frankly I couldn't be bothered. It's much quicker to crochet into both loops at the top of the stitch, not just one. The other reason is when I was swatching, my stitch gauge was fine, but my row gauge was short and I needed to add extra rows. And I thought, if I'm trying to follow the instructions and add extra rows, and I'm going to follow that saying back or front, and it's, I thought, no, I'm just not going to, I'm going to ignore that bit of it and just work into the rows straight. So that's what I'm doing. I'm very pleased, it feels lovely because these are nice yarns that I'm working with, so that's all good. The pattern, as well as being very comprehensive, actually gives instructions for other weights of yarns as well, and how to work out for other weights. It's a pattern with a lot of flexibility as it is, because you can make a tunic, a cardigan or a vest, but also you can do that in other weights. So yes, lots of versatility in there. I'm already kind of half planning making one in double knitting weight yarn, in perhaps greys and blacks, more a work garment than perhaps this will be. But I'm really enjoying the process of it. I could possibly be working on something else at the moment, but I'm enjoying working on that. And because I'm changing yarns, you then have that can't wait to get to the next stripe, even though they're very broad stripes. So yes, this is Lysvirka, I hope, by Brigitte Osenbruck, and that is a work in progress at the moment, which I don't think will take me that long to finish, although I appreciate they are famous last words, and that probably means that I'll finish it sometime next September. Now I have another work in progress, and this probably will take a long time. I normally have a project on the go that is fairly straightforward, simple knitting or stockinette, stocking stitch, or just something really that doesn't require me to look at it too closely. And I knit that whilst I'm checking my ceremonies for work. I always read them from the screen to check them, just to make sure they work okay as a herd piece rather than a red piece. So I usually have projects on the go that take a long time, but that's okay. I was very generously given a pattern, and that pattern is Stillness by Sweet Paprika Designs. Elizabeth Sullivan, I think it is. Yep, Sullivan. So thank you again to the person who very kindly gave me this pattern. It is rather lovely, and as you can see, it's a striped V-neck sweater, slightly contiguous style of shoulder. It's worked from the top down, and I thought that was great. And it is actually a really good not quite enough yarn project, because I have some yarns that I can make work with that. So for my main colour, I am using this rather untidy ball because it's been used as something and unpicked, and this is Lanus Stop Extra Merino. Don't know if I said all double knitting weight, and this has been in the stash about 6 years. So that will be my main colour, and by the main colour I mean that is, on this one, the lighter colour, so the borders, the back, you know, the welt, cuffs, neckband, and the lighter colour stripes. I also have quite a lot of this, which is Sublime Cashmere Merino Silk DK. And this will be an alternating stripe. And then for the other alternating stripes, this is going to get confusing, but I will demonstrate what I mean in a moment. I have 3 yarns. This I think has been in the stash even longer. Let me double check. So again, a pretty pink. Now I'm pretty sure this is Louisa Harding Cashmere DK, which is a merino 35% microfiber, it doesn't say what that is, and cashmere, a 10% cashmere. And this has been in the stash for 12 years. So there we go. That time I used it up really, isn't it? And I also have this beauty from Ducky Darling's Yarns. This was some of her DK, which was very kindly given to me, so thank you. And this, I'm not sure if you're going to see that it has some sparkle in it. This is by Easy Knits, and this is their Twinkle base. I'm pretty sure it's called Twinkle. Let's have a quick look. Yep, Twinkle DK in the Cub colourway, so that's merino silk and a bit of stellina. So it's a not quite enough yarn sweater, but it's a planned one. And let me just see how long that's been in the cupboard actually, because I know where I got that. It was a really one of my favourite ever shows in Brighton. Oh, it's not going to show. Oh, there we go. And that has been in the cupboard also 6 years. So there we go. God, I can't believe that was 6 years ago. Anyway, time is passing, we deal with it. So this is where I am so far. So you can see I have the lighter colour for the narrow stripes. I'm alternating the Sublime, I'm just on the 3rd one of those, and then I've got the Louisa Harding, the Ducky Darlings, and the next stripe that isn't the Sublime will be this grey. And then I'll just repeat that pattern through the stripes. I'm enjoying it as a make. I've only just got to the point where I've joined together for the bottom of the V-neck. So some increasing to go, and then I'll split for the sleeves. I think I have enough of each bit to do the planned stripe pattern. I'll be really disappointed if I haven't, given that I've planned this, as opposed to my usual, am I going to run out, what do I need to add in? But if things need to change, then things will need to change, and that's no problem. So yes, that's work in progress number 2, Stillness by Elizabeth Sullivan, in an assortment of merino based double knitting yarns. Hello lovelies. Now when I was on the Chevy Rail hosted Knit Night, one of the topics of conversation was what everyone was calling LaCroix soda. And that's because that's what it's called. I was then ordering some confectionery from a shop which also sells some American candy and some American drinks, and I spotted this. Now I was a little confused at first because I would pronounce that LaCroix. There's 2 reasons for that. Firstly, France is about 40 miles away that way. I'm closer to France than I am to London, so that's why I would look at that and say LaCroix. Not that there's a huge French influence here, but... And the other thing is, if you've ever watched Absolutely Fabulous, LaCroix, sweetie, LaCroix. So, I thought I'd better try some, because I realised this is what everyone was talking about. And I suffer from massive FOMO, youngest child syndrome. So this is the limoncello flavour. And this is a bit of live tasting. So let's see. Cheers, everyone. Yes, I should probably put it in a glass and be civilised, but... oh no, that tastes weird. That tastes... It has a touch of cream soda about it. Yeah, it tastes more like cream soda than it does lemon, to my palate. I know they do a lot of other flavours. I think the only other flavour available in the particular shop I was at, was buying from, was passion fruit, which isn't a flavour I'm keen on, but yeah, I'm not getting a lot of lemon. Maybe because it's limoncello rather than lemon, but live tasting, chaps. Great knitting podcast. I'll get back to the knitting now. I have 2 more works in progress to show you, and the first is the continuing adventures of Les and the knitting machine, which is sometimes but not always my friend. I was trying to do some pieces using some fine linen cotton yarn that I've got, and they were sort of working a bit, but then they stopped working altogether. So then I grabbed just some acrylic 4-ply because I wanted to try some sort of shaping techniques, and the machine seemed to like that, having previously not liked the 4-ply / fingering weight yarn. So I thought I would go for it, and I'm going to show you something that's halfway around a row because I'm such a professional, but these rows are big. I have a couple of cones, or had a couple of cones, of King Cole Merino blend in a 4-ply weight, which is quite a nice yarn. It's not the softest merino, but it's not bad. And I got it at Unravel last year from the Uppingham Yarns booth, and I thought I'm going to give that a try. And I managed to make 4 panels, because as we know I tend to make things in halves, partly because they have a habit of going wrong, and partly because if I want something very loose then I'm going to need more than the bed of the machine for my size. So, excuse it being screwed up, it's been laying in a corner. I made 4 panels, and I used the same stitch count that I'd used for the fine yarn, the same gauge rather, which means these 4 panels are enormous. So I didn't want to do another boxy. I have a couple of those that I've done on the machine and I really like them, but I just didn't want to keep churning out the same thing. And so I've sewn all 4 together, just mattress stitch them. And what I'm going to do is, because they're so wide, is a waterfall front cardigan. Now my initial plan was to make these and then do a circular yoke, either sweater or cardigan. So I only made them as tall as they need to be from the arm down. So I've got a lot of knitting to do, and they are very long rows, but it's okay. So I have the 4 panels, and the idea was to do plain body and then some variegated yarn in the circular yoke. And I have a couple of yarns here from Wool Kitchen. So this, if you can see it, hopefully you can see the colours coming through, is the first one. And this is 75% Blueface Leicester, 25% nylon in the, I'm not sure if it's heterochromia or metrochromia, but I'll leave that there for you to work it out for yourself. But as colour matches go, it's not bad, is it? So this is the first colour I'm using. The second one I'm using is also from Wool Kitchen. I do like their yarns, I have to say. And this is a merino silk 50/50, and this is in the moon hopping colourway. So slightly lighter grey, but you've still got those spots of colour. So I've done a few rows in the first one, and I'm just beginning to fade in the second. When I have done that, I have a third wool. No, this isn't Wool Kitchen, this is Dye Bath. I bought it at the same place as I bought the Wool Kitchen, that's why I got confused. And this is the Mint Julep colourway, which it says is a one of a kind. It's blowing out a little, it's slightly more green on there. So that's my plan at the moment. It's all a bit vague and woolly. I went to the Ann Budd books to work out shaping, I think it was the Ann Budd, for the circular yoke, but I am, or am I doing raglan? See, I can't even remember that. I know I've got it all written down, and at the moment it's just knitting, knitting, knitting. And it will have a waterfall front because it's so wide. So rather than make the whole thing part of the body, some of it will just hang at the front. So that's work in progress number one. And I know this is, you know, welcome to the vague news. This is a pattern that is growing very organically. And sometimes I like to do that. And sometimes I like to have something much more structured. So my second project, or my second work in progress I'm telling you about in this section. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to have to take another sip of this, even though I'm not convinced I like it. But, you know, dry throat. I don't think I'll be buying it again. I have two sisters. And you've seen in the past that I've talked of my niece and nephew. They're my eldest sister's children, and I've made things for my middle sister. Well, my eldest sister can knit. We were all taught. Middle sister decided to take her creative pursuits elsewhere, and she's a talented artist. Big sister didn't knit for a while during her kind of teenage years, went back to it when she was about 18, 20. And has produced in her time some absolutely stunning pieces. When my nephew was born, she knitted a Shetland lace christening blanket for him. And it was like each row took half an hour type of job. It was incredibly big and detailed and beautiful. She also knitted herself a sweater with a tiger's head on the front. And at one point had something like 6 or 7 colours in a row. Just amazing. She has great patience. So she's the one who got all the patience. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, so she has great patience, and she has created these beautiful things. In more recent years, she's tended to knit simpler items, baby knits if she knows of someone having a baby. Bit pointless if not. And she does squares to put together for charity blankets and that sort of thing. She was at my house a while ago, and she was flicking through Interpretations Volume 4, which is a series of patterns. There are a number of these interpretations books. I've only got a couple of them. And the patterns are by Joji Locatelli and Vera Villamarchi. And there's a pattern in here that everyone who's looked at it has gone, oh, that's lovely. And let me see if I can show you. So this is The Winter Folk by Joji Locatelli. So you can see it is this beautiful coat, basically, long jacket coat, hooded, and it's got a cable panel down the back, and if you can see on that picture, down the fronts as well. And it is a beautiful piece. I had toyed with the idea of making it for myself, but given that eldest sister had all the patience, I'm not going to make something that big, that long for me. Ain't gonna happen. So she said, will I knit it for her? And I said, no, because I thought I'm not listening to it for myself. I'm not going to make one for someone else. I'm not always nice. This won't come as a shock, but I'm not always nice. And I said to her, why don't you knit it? You're perfectly capable. There's nothing here you can't do. So, because she looks at the stuff I'm making, which is sometimes a bit weird and wacky, and she thinks, oh, I can't do that. But she is so talented. So I was trying to encourage her to pursue her talent. And also, I wasn't going to make it. And it requires worsted weight yarn. And I had some lovely turquoise solid Noro, which is unusual because normally I go for the variegated Noro. Sort of turquoisey, greeny, tealy sort of colour. And she took it and she started, and she just didn't get on with the pattern. Now, there's nothing wrong with the pattern. There's nothing wrong with my sister. It just wasn't a match made in heaven. Some of the terminology she hadn't come across, and I was kind of helping where I could. But also, and I do forget this, that she has sometimes problems with her eyes. She has glaucoma. She has some other problems. And I think she was just finding it more than she wanted to take on. She wanted to do little things and squares. So that's fair enough. So she gave me the yarn back and said, there you go, I'm not going to do that. So I felt bad because I'd initially said no, I wasn't going to make it. And also she has a 60th birthday coming up. Now realistically I'm not going to get this done for a 60th birthday. If I get it done for Christmas I'll do well, but anyway. And she said, no, don't worry about making it. It's lovely, but whatever. Well, I messaged my niece and said, do you think your mum really wants that? Because if she does, I'll make it. And also, thinking about the yarn that I'd given her, I gave it to her because it was the only yarn I had which was enough of the right weight. I don't know if it's the colour she would have chosen. Maybe she just didn't like that. And also, it'll be a hand wash, which she also may not like. So I said to my niece, do you think she really wants it? And if she does, would she want it in the yarn that I gave her? Or would she want something that she can throw in the washing machine? And if the latter, what sort of a colour? So my niece came back and said, yes, I think she does really like it. I think she would like it. Washing machine option would be a good one because practicalities, and probably a neutral colour, so a cream, fawn or grey. So fair enough. So completely out of character, I bought yarn, and I bought enough for a whole project because it's not for me. Now, because I've gone down the machine wash route, this isn't a luxury hand-dyed super fancy yarn. This is a good workhorse commercial yarn which will hopefully hold up well when she wears the item. Now, worsted weight isn't a UK standard, so I was then debating, do I go for a DK or do I go for an Aran? And this sister, always cold, so I've gone for an Aran because I'm going to knit it to gauge anyway, of course, but I thought something slightly thicker would probably work. So I bought some Fashion Aran by King Cole. It is 70% acrylic, 30% wool, 200 meters per 100 gram ball, and it is a good workhorse yarn. I've always been quite fond of King Cole yarns. I find the texture of them really nice to work with and nice to wear. So I went for this soft grey, and it's got a really nice feel to it. It feels perfectly soft and wearable, and the stitch definition isn't too bad either, which, given that I'm working cables, is a good thing. Yeah, again, halfway through a round. I'm such a pro. So this is where I am so far. So if I show you the back, you can see the cable. So you start at the neck, work down one front, the back, the other front, and then join up for under the arms, which is what I've got to you there, and that's how much I've knitted. Then you knit this until it's 1,000,000 miles long. Well, alright, 26 inches, but it's going to feel like 1,000,000 miles. And also because you have very gentle increases in that, it gets bigger on the way down. Yeah, I'm finding the thought of this a little daunting, but I'm keeping going because it's for my sister and I love her and I want her to have this nice jacket. And I feel bad. So I have the two fronts. Oh, hello. And the back. And like I said, I've joined up for under the arm. And I've done however many inches that is. So it is a long piece, so there's a lot of knitting to go. In terms of working it, it's okay. Bizarrely, and whether it's just because I was watching Hairspray last night on the Shows Must Go On YouTube channel, I've started going wrong on the cables. I've got this far and I've started going wrong. Now whether I've relaxed a bit too much, stopped looking at the pattern, thinking, oh I know this, I can see where it's going, or why it's happened, I don't know, but I've got to kind of focus in on the cables. But it's not too faffy a pattern to work. You've got these cables, but on the way back you just knit and purl. You've got these chunks of stocking stitch between the cables, so you've just got these 3 slower bits in every row. And like I say, on the reverse, you know, on the wrong side, you're just purling where you've knitted before and knitting where you've purled before, so that's easy. So this is where I'm at. I have enough for the whole garment. Who am I? What have I done? And she better blinking well wear it. She will. She's very knit worthy, my sister. And like I say, she's always cold. So it will be a nice warm throw over jacket for her to wear. So the story of Winterfolk by Hohilokitelli. And this will probably be a work in progress for a while. If I'm going to get it done for her birthday, it won't be. But let's be realistic here. I can't work that monogamously on something that's the same colour, a solid colour. When I've tried that in the past, I've stopped knitting for a while. This is why I have multiple whips. So those are my multiple whips. Thank you very much for watching. I'm afraid we're going over the hour this month. Got a lot of stuff that I've shown you, so hope you don't mind. Well, if you do, you'll have gone by now, so that would be understandable. Thank you everyone for being here. Please do comment. I love to hear from you, as you know, so thank you very much to those who've commented in the past. I say please do, don't feel obliged, no obligation, but if you'd like to, don't be shy. I love to hear from you, so comment in the box below. There are notes below for all of the patterns, the yarns, the everything, so hopefully that will give you the names, give you links where I have them, and I hope you have a good month. As I'm recording this, it's the 30th of May. As from Monday in the UK, a gentle easing of lockdown, which appears to be a political decision rather than a public health one, but understandable. There is also the mental health impact of lockdown, so I may be being slightly sceptical on that. Given the way the politics... No, don't go political, Leslie. No one wants that. Yes, so we shall see what happens. Common sense is needed, but why it's called common sense when it's not that common is unknown to me. So we shall see how things go. It's easy for me to say I've still been working. My work has changed, the way I do my work has changed, but funerals have still been happening, so I've still been going out most days, even if it's just to the crematorium and back. So it's easier for me to say, oh, people should and shouldn't do something when I can do stuff. So I am aware that I need to try and understand other people's experiences of this as well. I hope you're all able to keep safe. I hope you're all able to keep well. If you have people in your lives, or if you yourselves have a positive test, keep well, keep safe. The vast majority of people recover from this, and that's the thing to keep hold of. It can be pretty grim for some, I know, but there's still a huge recovery rate. So if you do hit someone with a result, then please keep that in your thoughts. When I say hit someone with a result, I don't mean, you know, that would be, I mean if you come up against someone with a result, please keep in your thoughts that it's not automatically dreadful news. It's not good news, but it's not automatically dreadful news. Anyway, I shall stop talking about coronavirus. I wish you all a good month. I hope you have time to do the things that bring you joy. I'm wearing my Gigi t-shirt, so have a fabulous day on purpose if you can. And I will see you at the end of June, and being the end of June, the end of the second quarter, I will be making the draw next month for prizes. Exciting. So get posting if you want to comment on other people's items. If you've got whips and you want to put them in the chatter thread, do so. If you've got finished items, stick them in before about the 25th of the month. That's when I'll be drawing for the second quarter. And thank you to everyone who's taken part already. I will never need to look for a pattern again. I just need to have a little look in my favourites list, I think, because it's grown. Keep well, keep safe, look after yourselves, and thank you so much for being part of this bit of the internet. It means such a huge amount. Thank you everyone, take care, look after yourselves, and see you in the end of June. Cheers everyone, thank you, bye bye.